My name is Ernest. We'll be talking about Budget Crunch, the free tools for securing and improving your network. I don't know about you, but I have a very limited budget, and because I have a limited budget, I need to prioritize where I'm spending my money. Well, there's a lot of resources out there that will cost you nothing that have so much power and can do so much for you as far as network security, recovering files, deleting files securely. We're going to go over just some of these tools today. And some of the people I've heard, when you go around to different vendors, we have all the tools. We'll talk about that more in detail in a minute too. But I do want you to realize, I say, all these free tools you have to learn. This is true. There is some learning to free software, but you have to learn their software too. So you get to choose where you get to learn, because no matter what, there's going to be some learning. I will explain to you a couple that are a little bit more advanced. But as we go through these, you're going to find I chose a lot of these tools because they are simple to use. Let's just look at a partial list. UBCD, or CD USB security tools. I really enjoy using these. They're a lot of fun. They have a lot of wow factor to them when you're working with people and you're saying, well, let's test your security on your system. Ultimate Boot CD for Windows. We use it so much, especially when people I need to get my files off this computer. It's a dead hard drive or it's very corrupted, but I need to get it running. Is there any way to get off the viruses and malware? This is one of the products I use. I also use Backtrack. Backtrack is a very strong security tool, but because it is so powerful, let me caution you, be careful what you click in there and be careful what you're doing inside Backtrack. Hacksaw is basically something you put on a U3 device. You plug in your USB device, it automatically goes out, it scans the local computer and downloads all the passwords and hash passwords, Windows hashes, and then you can easily crack them offline. Just to give you a little bit of an idea. By the way, students are using these, which this leads into the U3 security tools. U3 is a type of USB device where it has its own menus. They can use these tools to bypass, because they can run their own proxies on the U3 tools. Because they can do that, they can bypass a lot of filtering issues or filtering controls that you may have in place. We'll talk about that more later. What is on your network? The Dude is one of the products I really enjoy. One of my workers brought this in and said, hey, check out this program. It's called The Dude. And I was like, yeah, right, dude. He's like, no, I'm serious. It's a really good product. Not only I've used it for wireless networks because it can tell me my different links between my networks. It'll tell me what speed they're going at. It does a wire map. It's a free product. It's a really good little product. Another one is Kane Enable, which I'll refer to as Kane. Super Scanner and GetIF. All of these have different abilities, and we'll get into them a bit more in a little bit. Discovering bandwidth hogs, Wireshark. Wireshark is very powerful. And it does take a little bit of a learning curve, but there's some great tutorials online. There's some great user community where you can ask questions. And of course, again, you'll see The Dude is on there. And then one that I absolutely love for wireless environments, and it's good for other environments too, is called QCheck. QCheck has a nice little application that you put on two different machines, and then you can run tests where you'll actually send packets back and forth. And because you're sending the packets back and forth between these two machines, what you are doing is you're getting real-time analysis. You're not just getting ping requests, which is great for wireless environments. Not ping requests, but QCheck, because when you send ping, you're just getting ping packets, ICMP packets. And so people are going, does this really mean I have a good wireless? No, it doesn't. You actually need to send a full application. You need to send something that's just like when people are logging onto your servers, when people are trying to surf the internet. QCheck will send real types of packets so you'll actually know what your bandwidth is. Find current security issues. Nessus is a great product, and it's not super complicated. It does have some more advanced features, but it is a paid-for product also, but I use the free side exclusively. Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer is a good product. It'll let you know, it can scan your whole network if you've got it configured properly. It's an excellent tool for seeing where patch levels are on your different machines. Kane Enable again. And then Metasploit. Metasploit's a very good product, very powerful for finding security holes. If you're not careful, it will actually exploit those holes. So you need to be careful with Metasploit. And Backtrack again. Which, by the way, Backtrack has Metasploit built into it. Password recovery, Kane Enable again. You notice that Kane is coming up a lot here. Ultimate Boot CD for Windows, Backtrack, and John the Ripper. Each of these has different ways to crack passwords, and I'm not just talking about Windows passwords. I'm talking about switches passwords. I'm talking about Cisco devices. I'm talking about wireless. There's so much that it can recover. Application and database tools, you have SQL Recon, Metasploit, HPing2, NStealth. just what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to give you an idea that there's several different tools. We'll talk about these tools more in detail in a little bit, but it just gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the tools that are out there. Encryption software. I like TrueCrypt. It's open source. It'll run on Linux, Mac, Windows. It'll run on anything. It's a good product. Deckert is one that I've used a lot. And then also Windows has its own built-in encryption, which I would say with Vista, I would say it's arrived. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but I would say it has arrived, and it's not a bad product. Before Vista, Microsoft's encryption, I don't consider that great of a solution. And that's just personal opinion. Wireless tools. You have AirCrack, Network Stumbler, Kane Enable again. Notice how Kane, like I said, keeps coming up. And then QCheck. And like I mentioned before, QCheck can analyze all these different tools, because not only do you need to make sure your wireless is secure, but you also want to make sure, if I bring several students into this classroom and I've got one wireless access point, are they going to be able to log on and have any decent speed? QCheck is excellent for that. Virtual machines. I use virtual machines a lot. And there's several, and I don't go with just one flavor, but I would highly recommend, depending upon your time, that you go with one flavor. But because I do presentations and I like to make sure that I'm staying current with more technologies, I do several different types. And I do VMware, I do Microsoft Virtual Server, I've used Zen, I've used Virtual Iron. Virtual Iron, the one thing I will say about Virtual Iron, their free product is a good product. They do have limitations on their free side, of course, just like VMware does on their free side. But Virtual Iron's tech support has been better than anything I've ever had, and I never paid for any technical support. It was all completely free. Very good company. I'm very impressed with where the company is going. We still run a lot of VMware. We still run Microsoft Virtual Server. I'm not running so much Zen because both VMware and Virtual Iron are kind of using Zen, if you will. Different technologies, but anyways. Perimeter security. You need to make sure that people are not getting into your network from the outside world. If you sit on a large internet connection, which most schools have a large internet connection, this is something you need to take into consideration. I use DNS stuff, DNS reports. These are free products you register. Great utilities that can put in there. OpenDNS. OpenDNS has a lot, and we'll get into this a little bit more in a little bit, but OpenDNS has a lot of security options it can add to your network. It adds just another layer to block kids from getting inappropriate internet sites. Firewall check, security space, Nmap, Nessus, and notice that Nessus is coming up again. Nessus to do penetration tests. When I've done penetration tests for other institutions, I've typically used Nessus from the outside and then from the inside. And by the way, Nessus you can run on a U3 device, a USB device. Data rescue and restoration. SyncBack is a really great software. Their free product is very powerful. I use that for backing servers up, and they'll even FTP. If you want to encrypt it and you want to be able to throttle the bandwidth it takes, you need to use their paid product. I think it's like $35 or $45 a server. Not expensive. Restoration, zero assumption, and free undelete. These are all free programs for undeleting files, and this is what I call my M&M files, my M&M software, because a student comes in, I can't tell you how many times yearbook has come in, we accidentally formatted our card and we lost all of our pictures. Not a problem. Bring me a bag of M&Ms or some cookies. We're in business. I don't tell them it only takes me 10 seconds to pull up the software. I pulled back the card, here's your pictures, and if they didn't take any more pictures, even if they formatted the card, we can pull off the pictures for them. If they took more pictures, we can get some of them, but not as many. We'll talk about that more later. PC security, you have DumpSec, Windows Fingerprint, WinAudit, Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer again. Windows Defender is a good little program, and it's built into Vista. You can download it for XP. WinFingerprint and WinAudit both are very powerful utilities, and we'll talk about those more in a minute. Securely transfer files, WinSCP, TerraTerm. Notice SyncBack. SyncBack can encrypt the files that you're transferring between servers. TinyURL. This is a little utility if you're ever doing any presentation or if you're doing any teaching and you have long URLs, or you're helping teachers have long URLs and you're like, how are my kids going to remember this URL? Show them how to use TinyURL. Now, one of the things you need to realize is that TinyURL can, or is seen by a lot of places as an anonymous proxy, and that's where you'll have to do some configuring on that, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit. One thing that I want to make sure you understand is no one tool fits it all. There is no Swiss Army knife when it comes to security, not complete Swiss Army knife. I'll refer to some tools as semi-Swiss Army knives, but they're not complete. even though some vendors out here on the show floor will tell you otherwise. I would gladly disagree with them. First of all, you need to determine your needs. For example, do you need to restore deleted files? Do you need to shred files that are important and you want to make sure they're gone permanently? Do you want to do network analysis? Do you want to do encryption? Do you want to do filtering? Each of these things requires usually a little bit different tools. And even if you have a company that does them all, quote unquote, part of the problem with that is the software is so bloated and it becomes very unwieldy. It's much better to use a tool that's designed just for a specific thing, in my opinion. Again, this is my opinion. I say find the right tools for the right job and then use the correct tool, and life will be much simpler and you'll be able to do it much faster. Let's go through what are some of my most used tools. OpenDNS. It's just another layer to block proxies and adult sites. OpenDNS is much faster when I'm trying to resolve all my different websites. I found it to be very stable, very solid, but it also has some filtering features in there that are outside of my proxy, that are outside of my web filter. It's just another layer. I'll show you a screenshot from that and show you some of the stuff they can do. CC Cleaner, called Crap Cleaner. It removes all unused files and other software that slows down your PC. I've used this on family and home PCs more than anything else because all of our machines are set up underneath a standard image. And I use Norton Ghost. And that's actually, I probably should have put that in there as one of my most used tools. But anyways, Norton Ghost I do use. PC Decrapifier. When you get a new computer and it comes loaded with all this trialware, Earthlink, McAfee, who cares what else, garbage that slows down your system. PC Decrapifier is a great product. It's free for personal use, $20 per tech if you're going to use it on a corporate scale. And it has a little bit more features on its pro side, but it's a great little product. File Shredder, this is a fast, safe, reliable way to shred documents and does it to DoD standards. The Dude, which is auto network discovery, link monitoring, notifications. It supports SNMP, ICMP, DNS, TCP monitoring. Excellent, excellent site. Notice that you're starting to see some tiny URLs showing up on my website. And you'll see a lot more of them. WinAudit. WinAudit is for Windows-based computers. Just about every aspect of the computer inventory is examined. And it can also automate inventory and administration at the network level. WinAudit is a very powerful product. It even goes down to the DLL layers and tells you whether you've got mismatched DLLs or if they need to be, here's your DLL, and you can go check, oh, maybe this DLL is out of sync with what should be on there. SoftPerfect Network Scanner. It's a multi-threaded IP, SNMP, and NetBIOS scanner. Very easy to use. Double click on it. You can have it auto-discover your network, and away you go. And then sync back for file backup software. Here's a screenshot of the Dude. And what I want you to see here is it's got the whole map laid out of this network. Not only does it have a whole map laid out, but then I can go click on any one of these links. And if I click on one of these links, it'll actually tell me the speed of that link and whether there's an error or an issue on that link. Let's look at some what I call oldies but goodies. ADA32. We use this because we also do some consulting for some elementary schools where we maintain their networks remotely. And we've loaded this on their machines so that way we can do remote control, we can do screenshots, we can pull all this stuff out of their machine, and we can take over their machine, reboot their machine. It's a very powerful little utility. And it lets you display information or save it to XML, HTML, or CSV. Superscanner 4, it finds all the open ports on a system or on a network. Very powerful. I prefer version 3 just because it's the tool I use the most, to be honest. Version 4 it's nice and it's got some throttling, but version 3 is the tool that I am most familiar with, and it's got a little more power. It's a little more technical in my opinion. It's got a little more power. Nmap is for scanning and footprinting. Cane Enable. This is the quote-unquote Swiss Army knife of password cracking. There's lots of utilities on there. Everything from token devices to Cisco devices to wireless devices. We'll see this. And also enumerating Windows shares and passwords. Wireshark is also another way to catch passwords that are going across your network. Autoruns is an excellent little program for doing exactly if you're trying to diagnose a system. You go to a system that says it's running slow. It takes 5 hours to boot. Well, what's all loading on the system? You can find it through what's called msconfig, start, run, and then type msconfig. But if you really want to know everything that's going, use autoruns. And this is a free utility it's now Microsoft because they bought the company out that was running it, but you can download it from their website, irongeek.com. Excellent website. I can't say enough good about this website. They have step-by-step tutorials that are literally, here's a video file. By the way, your students are going to these sites, guaranteed. Also, the three-finger salute. 9 times out of 10, I have people say, oh, my system's completely dead. I can't stop anything. I train my workers to go in there. They do the three-finger salute, Control-Alt-Delete. They see which processes are running. They'll stop one of those processes, and they can still save, oftentimes they can kill the offending process or program that's running without necessarily the person losing all their data on all their other programs that they didn't save. Default password list. If any of your switches, wireless, anything on your network has a default password, or your Windows computers, it's listed on this website, and this website's updated almost every couple months. So when new devices are coming out, this default password list is being updated. Nessus, great system-wide vulnerability scanner. The Google Hacking Database. If you've not checked out Johnny I Hack Stuff, and that's where this tiny URL will take you to, he has excellent pre-configured strings, which, by the way, they work not only in Google, but Yahoo and MSN. If you have a website, if you have any of your computers that are facing the internet, I would highly recommend looking at this. One of the things they teach you in network security is go look to see if they've just got a password text file sitting on their web server. So many places do. It's not funny. This is a screenshot of auto runs, just to give you a little bit of an idea of all the information that's a part of your logon. And you can see all the different software that's in there. Here's all the, the iTunes helper, all this different stuff that loads when your computer runs. You have image hijackers, you have, your Internet Explorer helpers, schedule tasks, known DLLs, Windows login. I mean, lots of information, and all this has to be processed every time your computer boots. So you can go through and selectively turn on and off things. OpenDNS. It has phishing protection. Like I said, it's just another layer. If they're operating, what's called fishtank.com, it's the world's most trusted source for phishing data. And I integrate that right on my website. Like I said, it sits outside all my filters. It's my external firewall because I point all of my DNS settings to their server. And then at their server, I've registered my IP address. And then I said, don't allow this through. I also do domain blocking. There are certain websites I specifically want to block. You can blacklist them. Adult site blocking, it automatically, like I said, just adds another layer to protect you, to safeguard kids or the students at your school from getting to stuff they shouldn't get to. And by the way, if your filter system fails open, which some filter systems do, so that way your internet doesn't go down, if you've got this sitting on your system, you at least have a basic, pornography filter sitting on there. Also, web proxy blocking, and they prevent people on your network from bypassing access restrictions that you put in place. And they block web proxies to help ensure your network remains secure. They do an excellent job, and it's just another layer to add to your system. Let's look at some Kane Enable stuff. Like I said, these are different, and actually it's 2 different versions of Kane, but I've used several different versions. I want to show you, first of all, right here. I'm using the wireless tab, and as you'll see, this shows the GCA wireless. And what's the password or the web key? It is GCA hotspot 05. It's that easy to find. And because it's that easy to find, I just let you know how easy WEP is to be cracked. And you'll notice that the WPAs, even though they're pre-shared keys and there's some vulnerabilities in those, Kane did not enumerate those right away. I'd have to collect much more information before I could enumerate those or be able to hack those. Now, the other thing I can do with Kane, and by the way, I can run Kane from a USB U3 CD, a U3 device, excuse me, not CD, but a U3 device, a USB U3 device. Notice that I went here and I pulled on this computer because this computer had several people who logged on to it and they logged on to the internet. I was able to pull off all these different places, all these websites they went to. Go to a teacher's computer, I've got their username, I've got their password, I've got the website that it goes to. This right here is a screenshot of Nessus, just gives you a little bit of a summary about it. You can see that this Nessus scan was run. This was run in 2007. It tells you the number of vulnerabilities, open ports, it had 35. Number of low vulnerabilities as they see them was 55. The number of high vulnerability issues, 133. That is a lot of high vulnerabilities. There's a problem with this system. That's one of the things that, as you can see, Nessus will do a nice, excellent report for this and say, here's immediate, and then also give you some information on how to close those holes. So my other most used tools, of course, is Wireshark. I sniff passwords. I use it for making sure that no passwords are going in clear text, some of my different applications. And by the way, I have seen several implementations of SSL where, because they allow the person to click a box saying, this is my personal computer, it sends the information back in clear text. So even though it's a quote-unquote secure site, sometimes it'll store it on the local computer as clear text. Metasploit is a very strong hacking network security, and it's very simple to use. BootTrack or Ultimate Boot CD for Windows. Both of these have about every tool you'd want, honestly, if you're a point-and-click type person for understanding network security. And they even have documentation. You can go online, you can read, you can watch videos on how to use these different software packages. Read Notify. This is basically a registered email. I have used this several times when I wanted confirmation that we sent an email to someone and they got the email. It's basically a way of saying registered email. So that way you know that they received the email, and you can drill down to the point where you can even find the city and town where they're opening that email at. And we've done this for different things where people wanted to know. Someone was using a Hotmail account and they were sending stuff that was very inappropriate anonymously. Could we find out where this was being sent from? Yes, using Read Notify and other programs like this, you can find where it's being sent from. The house or the street or the city where it's being sent from. Virtual machines. Virtual machines are excellent not only for running your network and quicker disaster recovery. And by the way, on my website, I have some presentations on virtual machines and some of the tools. But I also use them for network security or penetration testing. Very powerful. Let's look at a screenshot here from Wireshark. You're going to notice that inside of here, I have done a network scan, and notice that I've got gcasd.org, which is our website, and then this is our online help desk. And what I've got is I actually have the username, CA Stotts, which is my wife who works there, and then her password, PW equals help. I know that her password is help to log on to the online help desk request to fill out, some type of issue. There we go. It was going across the network in plain text. These are things you need to realize, and Wireshark can be run from, again, a U3 USB device. I plug it in. If you allow me to have USB devices on your network, I plug it in. I can scan the network, depending upon how your switches are configured. Security testing. BART PE or Ultimate Boot CD for Windows. We basically use Ultimate Boot CD as kind of our base image, and then we do BART PE to customize it, because we always like to add some more tools to it. UBCD is just Ultimate Boot CD. This is looks like a DOS environment, but it's a Linux non-graphical environment, or for the most part non-graphical. It's menu driven, but it will test your hardware, it'll test your RAM, it'll test your hard drive. All these different types of things it can do for you, including low-level formats, which, by the way, if you've not been reading the news recently, a bunch of hard drives that came from China had password stealing software. Maxter hard drives had password stealing software built into the drive. So you plug them into a computer, or they came with your computer, you turned on your computer, it automatically harvested your passwords and sent them to a website in China. With Ultimate Boot CD, you can actually do a low-level format and wipe all that out. And here's just kind of a screenshot of it. It shows you some of the different tools. Like I said, this is just a partial listing of some of the tools. Backtrack CD, which is a more powerful cracking network auditing package. And then Knoppix is also a very powerful utility. Here's a screenshot just to give you an idea of what Backtrack is capable of. And there's a new version coming out, but this is the most current version right now. What I did is I went underneath penetration, I did a Metasploit, and then I did the Ninja option, which, if you notice, a nice little what's called leet or geek speak, it says, auto own. Basically, you click on that and it's going to go out and run all of the hardcore tests against the box and try and make sure that you have full control of that device. Be very careful with that. I would not recommend clicking that in any network environment. On a standalone PC that's not hooked up to the internet, sure, go for it. Or if you've got two of them but that are not hooked up to anything else, try it. But otherwise, I recommend specifically not to click this one. But all the rest of these you can go through, and you can see right here, just example. Privilege escalation, network mapping, information gathering, covering your tracks. Students can download this and they can run it from a USB device. If you allow me to boot to a USB device or a CD-ROM, I can run this software. Another reason why you need to control your USB and CD-ROM environments. Ultimate Boot CD for Windows and BART PE. Here's a screenshot from one, and this was our hacking and recovering CD that we made for the school that we use all the time when people bring in machines or they bring in software that they need to have done, because we have staff and personal machines that come into the school that we have to repair. Perimeter security, DNS stuff and DNS reports. It'll tell you if you're blacklisted. It'll help you test your email system. It'll check your HTML code for errors. WinHTTP, which basically what this does is this will download your website in its entirety to an offline, and then you can run security software against it and see, oh, can I hack my site? Is there some security vulnerabilities? Did I put a default password in plain text on my website that I didn't realize? OpenDNS, as we looked at before. There's also firewall checkers, which is firewallcheck.com, and also Security Space. Excuse me. Both of these are very good products. Both of these. Firewall Checkers has basically points you to a bunch of other different resources. You can try your firewall and see what you're doing. I also recommend Nmap and Nessus is also great utilities. And then Security Space, they have a free product which I use. Some people use the paid product, which gives you more detailed reports. But Security Space gives me kind of an overall high-level view of where my network perimeter security is at. Tools to assess vulnerability, Nessus, which we've talked so much about. And it will scan all types of devices. It'll look for Windows errors, Macintosh errors, Linux errors. It's a very, very powerful utility. Snort, which is an intrusion detection system, which is free. And we've used Snort, and there is a paid side of Snort, and it's a little more powerful. And they have different sensors you can put out there, so you can get as fancy as you want to with Snort. Metasploit Framework, which basically lists all the different vulnerability and exploitation tools. Use with great caution and have permission, because it is very powerful. I recommend to do lots of reading before you ever think about using this. The Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer. This will basically determine where your security state is for a specific computer or an entire network. It'll give you a nice report of where everything is sitting at. Is it patched? Is it up to date? Password recovery tools. FGDump, which is a massive password auditing tool for Windows. Very, very powerful. Can enable. Again, it's a very good password cracker. John the Ripper. It also cracks Windows passwords very efficiently. And then Rainbow Crack. It's a very inventive password cracker, which, by the way, Rainbow Crack you can bypass if you make your users use 15-character passwords or longer. You get into 15 characters or longer, most of these tools will completely drop off because they're too long of passwords. And you're sitting here going, how am I going to have my users use 15-character passwords with symbols and numbers? Well, let me tell you a little dirty secret about passwords, and it's on my website, by the way. There is a tutorial on passwords where you can listen to the PowerPoint. Complexity really is not important. I can break complexity. It's length that I can't break if I'm a security person. So the longer you make the password, I have all of our people make sentences about their favorite football team or basketball team or whatever, something that makes them laugh. You know, if it's longer than 15 characters, so I'm getting out there to 20, 30 characters, just the time that it takes to crack that, they're never going to break it. Change and discover Windows passwords, Windows password recovery, and this can be downloaded. This is a hyperlink if you go to my PowerPoint. There's an offline NT password and registry editor, John the Ripper. It's very good. Boot floppy with cracking capabilities, and an emergency boot CD, which is also a bootable CD-ROM. It's intended for system recovery or in case of software or hardware faults, but you can also use it to crack passwords. And then here's another Linux version. There's several different Linux versions. You can use Knoppix. As you go through each of these different Linux versions, you can choose. Each of them have cracking tools for Windows. There's just a lot of different ways of getting into Windows boxes, including servers. Network scanning, Microsoft Baseline Analyzer, which is a very product, the dude. And what you're doing is you're trying to find out what's on your network. And it's a great mapping and analyzing. GetIf is another tool, which is Network SNMP Discovery and Exploit tool. GetIf goes beyond. The first two were just kind of, they scan your network and tell you what's out there. Microsoft Baseline Analyzer will tell you if there's an issue out there. It'll say, here's your patch. But GetIf will actually then use it and say, here's how you can exploit it. And then Network Scanner, which is one that I've used, and it's just an EXE. So as long as they can run any EXE, they just go double click on it, they can see what's on the network. And then to enumerate Windows shares, this is very common if the administrator password is blank, which most people use, or if it's a very common password that's used on your administrator. You get a machine straight from the computer, or excuse me, straight from the company, Dell, HP, whatever. Most of the time they'll come with an administrator account and a blank password. That's the way Windows was set up with XP and below. Very easy to crack. Enumerate the Windows directory, and then here's an LDAP query, and then you can dump accounts and groups and permissions, stuff like that. Network scanning, HPing2, which is actually what it will do is you can sit here and listen to traffic that's going across your network, take it apart, change it a little bit, and then send it back out. This is known as what's called a man-in-the-middle attack. This is a little bit more advanced, I'll tell you that. But if you're really wanting to test exactly how your web server is handling traffic, this is a very powerful little product. And you can also test some of your other applications. Netcat, which is kind of the quote-unquote TCP/IP, which is what most computers use to talk on the internet, is the Swiss Army knife, where you can kind of go break apart these, again, this different information that's being sent across the network or the internet, and you can reassemble it and send it back out. TCP dump for Linux or Windows, and then you have WinDump, which is basically the TCP dump, and it will analyze all this information. Again, very powerful. And then LAN Spy, which will do local domains, NetBIOS, global and local users, policy settings, and so much more. LAN Spy is a very, very powerful little product. QCheck, which checks for network response time, throughput, streaming performance. As I was telling you about before, QCheck, I use this very exclusively in wireless networks because I want to know what's my real bandwidth going through the wireless. File rescue and restoration. Zero assumption. I have digital image rescue, and zero assumption has a paid product, or you can just use the zero assumption, and there's also a free tool on there, so you can decide where you want to go with these products. I use most of these products most of the time to recover images, but I also use them to undelete files on a computer or on a network. Restoration and file recovery, free undelete. Effective file search is a paid product. I will tell you that. They do have a trial version, but if you're trying to find a database or some other type of file on the network, this will scan all your servers, and it will actually look inside the documents for a specific text. Social security numbers, all this type of thing. So if teachers are housing this on their local network drives, this is a very good product that I would highly recommend. Discover and secure delete important information. You have Windows and Office Key Finder and Encryptor. I don't know about you, but we use, volume licensing for our Microsoft products. Well, if one of our kids gets a hold of that volume license key and they go out and sell it, there's a problem. All of our just became invalid. So I'm going to encrypt my Office key, my Windows keys. And this is the product I can do that. I can also use this to find them. Product keys can also find SQL server keys. So that's something to think about. Secure delete, you want to make sure that a file is gone, gone, gone. And it's not recoverable. You can say how many times it will go and change the encryption algorithm. And File Shredder, both of these are different products that do the same thing. Secure delete is designed to be DoD compliant, Department of Defense. DumpSec will dump all of the registry and share permissions from a computer. Very powerful little utility. When Fingerprint scans your Windows for shares, enumerates usernames, groups, SIDs, and so much more. So I'm just trying to give you an idea. Here's all these different software you can use to go do a full evaluation of your network. Application and database tools. nStealth. It's a very effective HTTP or web application server. Oh, excuse me, not server, security scanner. So nStealth, and I use their free product. They have a lot more options on their paid side, but their nStealth, for me, for what I'm doing, it does a good enough job for where I'm at on the free side. WinHTTP track, which we talked about before, which will copy a website. SQL Recon, which it'll perform both active and passive scans on the network to identify all your SQL servers running out there. And most of these tools, like I said before, can be run from a USB device. And there's more SQL tools on this other link that I put on there. And then this next tool automates the process of downloading the schema and the contents of a database, and it checks for vulnerabilities and SQL injections. And those of you who are into database and securing databases, this is a very good product you'll want to look into. And then Web Inspect, they have a paid product. They've been bought by HP. Very powerful utility. Actually, it's my #1 application database utility in my book. It is not a free product. Now you can get a 15-day trial to run against one of your web servers, which I've done that before. And I have one main web server, so I used their 15-day trial, ran it against it, said, okay, here's my list of vulnerabilities. At this time, I can't afford the product. Thank you very much for the trial. And then I go on. Encryption software. TrueCrypt is a cross-platform with lots of options. TrueCrypt is very, very powerful. But as you get more powerful options, of course, there's going to be more things you can choose to do. DeckArt is has a free version. It's very simple, very easy to use. The paid version has a lot more options, and the paid version I think was like $50. And that was for, per computer I put it on. But I use it on one computer to back up all of my data files that are going to go to an external hard drive that'll go off-site. Or anything that's leaving my campus area to go off-site is backed up with DeckArt. Email or messaging, which is PGP and encryption email. Aircrack. Because wireless is becoming so much a part of our networks, we need to realize exactly where our vulnerabilities in our wireless networks are. Just to give you, this is just a basic list of some of the different tools. Aircrack is a suite of tools. And it has everything from CalPatty, which is designed to break WPA, to air dump and aircrack, and all these different tools are designed to break WEP or WPA tools. So you need to realize that you need to have several things in place to have a secure wireless. If you're sending grades, if you're sending private health data, anything that's confidential, you're sending over a wireless network, you need to make sure you've got very good security on it. Network Stumbler helps you find wireless networks. It even has an ability to click in a GPS tracker and kind of like a Geiger counter to try and find where this other wireless access, or rogue as it's known, and not a non-authorized wireless access point is getting into your school network. Kismet, which is wireless tools and packet sniffers. And then, of course, QCheck, which I was talking about before. It'll determine the real application speeds on wireless networks. Very, very useful. Much better than ping. Virtual machines. Zen for Linux. You can also run on other platforms, but Zen is a very, very good product. VMware Server or VMware Workstation for booting BART PE ISOs. Or, for example, if I want to run all of my hacking bootable CD-ROMs, I don't want to carry it on my U3 device, or I block my U3 device. Well, if I put virtual machines on those servers, then I can load up those images of those CD files and I can run them. Microsoft Virtual Server. It is slower. I have found it typically. It's a little bit slower as far as its overall speed, but it's really pretty easy to set up. And it has a lot of powerful features. The Microsoft Virtual Server is adding now what is called P2V, or which is called physical to virtual tools. They're adding a bunch of free tools that other companies charge you money for. So while Microsoft may not be the fastest virtualization technology out there, they do add a lot of back-end tools that are very nice that you usually have to pay for with all these other free products. And then Microsoft Virtual PC and Virtual Iron. Like I said before, very good product. Their tech support is hands down the best. VMs can be used for auditing applications. They typically require a dedicated server. There's times where you say, okay, I need to run this software or this reporting tool. It needs a server. I can't afford to go out and buy another physical server. Not a problem. Set up a virtual machine, run that report, set up their software, and if it's something that's not going to be very heavy, you can load it on another server. Not a problem. I want to show you just as a U3 device. This is some of the different software that's in my U3, on my U3 USB device. I have analyzers, network monitors, traffic generators, so I can take down your wireless network. I can flood the wireless unless you have something to control me. Network scanners, intrusion detection systems, network utilities, network clients, Novell clients, Microsoft clients, secure clients, so I can bypass your filters and use my own SSL to get out to my own systems, SNMP, web devices. I have Firefox, I have Mozilla, so I can rechange your settings. I have auditing tools, password revealer, system tools, DOS prompt, Unix shell, all these things are all built into my U3 devices. So these are all a part of it. Because of that, you need to be very careful. If I've not said this enough, please be careful of how you handle USB devices in your environment, especially U3 devices. And here's USB Switchblade, and basically what it does, it accesses all stored passwords on a Windows computer. This gives you a little bit of an idea. You plug it in, you wait about a minute, you eject the drive, you go to run, start, and you'll find the flash drive letter, and you can enter it in, and then you can hack or crack the passwords if they're in hash, or someone will be Some of them will be in plain text. What about some digital forensic tools? SleuthKit and Autopsy Browser, these are built into your different boot CDs, but you can go get them individually. Boot CD and Backtrack both have some forensic tools where you can undelete files. Whenever you're starting to undelete files, or if you have a suspect of something that's might be illegal, please read this disclaimer. Be very careful when it comes to doing any forensic work, as you can end up in jail. If it has anything to do with child pornography, do not touch it. Call the police. Don't try to undelete it. Don't try and store it. Don't move it, because as soon as you move it, you are now a distributor. Even though you're trying to give evidence over to the police, you have just blown their ability to evidence, and now you are legally liable for having moved it, which now makes you a distributor of child pornography. The rules are very tough on that, and they're lacking some common sense, in my opinion. The law was written by politicians, not by computer people, unfortunately. So you need to be very careful whenever you're doing digital forensics. If it's anything that you might think that you come across, you say, this is looking like this has some illegal content, stop what you're doing, call the police department. Do not power off the computer. Unplug the network line. That's all you do. Then you call the police. Backup software. And this is SyncBack, which this just shows you some of the options that are built into SyncBack. Now the performance throttling, as you can see, is for the paid. The compression is also paid. But you can FTP without a paid version. But if you want some of the higher end secure FTP, you have to use the paid product. There's an overview on my website. Here's some network tools. WinSCP, which is a very friendly graphical interface for transferring files between Windows and Linux machines. Very powerful. Here's another flexible network resource monitoring tool. And then you have your Event Century, which is also basically, it consolidates all of your different log files. As we're going through this, I want to make sure that you realize that all these different tools, yes, there are paid tools out there. Yes, they say they'll do this, but most of these have very active communities that they will help you just step through and learn the tools. And they do the same thing as what the paid tools do. So like I say, you decide where you want to spend your budget money. And then, of course, Microsoft WAS Server, which, by the way, this week also made the news because WAS Server, Microsoft released an update, and unfortunately, that update broke WAS Server. So if you've been running WAS Server and you have it set up underneath the default update every day, you might want to go back and double check your WAS servers to make sure they're fixed. Because otherwise, if you're downloading all the updates, guaranteed, and if you're syncing every day, as of, I think, Friday or Saturday or Sunday, they broke. Some other network tools. SyncToy is used for copying and moving synchronization of different directories. Great little toy by Microsoft. And not only is it a toy, quote unquote, it's a very useful utility. And then you have your PS Tools, which manage remote systems, as well as a local one. And you have Foundstone, which they've got all these utilities. One of them is called HackPack, where it basically brings all these different hacking utilities into one area, and you click on them, it tells you a little bit of a description about it, and then you can click on it and it will download it, or it'll let you download that utility. And for those of you who like Macintoshes, which I don't mind them, but I'm not a Mac man, here is 22 essential utilities for Macintosh machines. And it's a very well written article by Computer. It goes out to Computer World, and it'll give you a lot of list of things of why you'd want to use them. Now we're going to do a little bit of Q&A time. All of this information that you've looked at so far is on my website at es-es.net, and I have step-by-step security videos, that I've done some stuff. And then there's also, like I said, irongeek.com. He has very in-depth step-by-step security videos. And if you want to know how to slipstream a Windows install, we've done that. It is well worth your time, in my opinion. I just want to let you see that here's a few fun utilities. You send it if you want to send large files over 100 megs. And then if you want to set up your own, free podcast or tiny URL like I've been using throughout this presentation. I want to thank you for your time, and I hope this was useful to you. Have a good day.